Hi everyone, it's Aga from EurekaCrystalBeads.com and I'm here with a super fun bead embroidery video for you. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, if you've learned anything, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss any of our content. In today's video we're going to be making this bead embroidered element because it can actually be anything you want. It can be a brooch, it can be a pendant, or it can be an earring, and it's very easy to make. Is this kind of decorative tile style or a mandala style thing, and it's simple to make. And one extra thing that I really like about this is I developed a way to bezel a chaton without gluing it in to the foundation first, which for bead embroidery is not very common. But this is an easy way, and as you can see, it looks really nice. So let me just quickly tell you what supplies you're going to need to make this. First of all of the beads that I'm going to be using today are from our January 2025 collection, the Vintage Dreams collection. This is the inspiration photo for this collection, and isn't it just lovely? It was inspired by the beautiful colors of a recently released Elite Eureka crystals in new Ignite colors. This is one of them. This is Mango Ignite. It has colored back and this beautiful kind of shimmery effect inside the crystal. So it's not a coating. This is inside a crystal, and we're going to put it in the middle of our work. In addition to the crystal, you're gonna need almost all of the seed beads that are in the collection. I wanted to use as many of them as I could because I love how they contrast with each other and the effect that they give with the vibrant colors. So these are the beads, all of them are in the collection. We have Toho 15, we have Toho 11, we have this gorgeous mix of Miyuki beads. There are some 15s, two colors of 11s, and 3mm bugles. And we will actually be using all of them a little bit. Then we have these ring beads in silver, and they will add a beautiful touch to this element. As you can see, they're over here. They made this kind of flower base for the rest of the design. Then we have some more check beads, because in here I have 2mm Firepolish, I have 3mm Firepolish, and then these bicones. This is a bicone mix that is included in the collection. These are Pretiosa bicones, and we're going to be using some of the pink ones. You should have enough of the pink ones to make one such element. Here I use the pink AB ones, and for this new element I'm going to be using the ones without the AB effect. So there's 72 beads in a mix, so you have plenty to work with. Now that's it for the beads. Because this is bead embroidery, you're also going to need a beading foundation, bead embroidery foundation. Here I have white that I colored in a little bit with some pink crayon. You can use a Sharpie, a marker, or anything you want. You can leave it white as well. I just used a bit of a pink because that I find will look the best under all of those beads. I also marked the middle, and that's all you need to do, because after you make the bezel, the rest will basically form itself around it. Then we're gonna need a needle, and I would recommend a size 11 or 12 for that, and some thread. I'll be using nylon thread, 1G. You can also use Nymo or KO. Fireline and similar fishing line type threads will do okay, but I'll just use 1G because I prefer it for bead embroidery. I will first use some orange one to match it with these beads over here, and then I'll switch to light pink for the outer rows. Again, if you don't have a thread to color match, you can just use white. I would not recommend black, but white will be okay. Then to finish our work, I have some velvet fabric. I have some E6000 glue because, well, we're going to need to glue in that backing fabric. And I have a lighter to melt the end of my thread. You can also just tie a knot instead, but I just prefer to use a lighter. Finally, some scissors to cut off the excess thread and the excess foundation and backing. Alright, that's it. Let's start beading. First up, I need to mark where my stone will go. So I put it in the middle, more or less, and I'm gonna just loosely trace it on this foundation with a pencil. Almost there. So we just need a circle that will be slightly larger than our crystal. I mostly just eyeball it. And now I have put on some thread on my needle. You just use any amount of thread that you find comfortable working with. And I'm going to start by putting my needle through the foundation anywhere on that circle. And I'll pick up a ring bead, a bugle, this very vibrant orange 11-0 bugle and ring bead. You can slide that down. And I want to go through on this circle, more or less where the center of that ring bead will fall, so that they end up more or less next to each other on that circle. I'm going to go up next to the second one that I added, more or less where the middle of the next one will be, and I'll pick up a ring bead, a bugle, and an 11-0, and I'm going to go down this previous bugle and the ring bead just like this and through the foundation, so that the next sequence falls on this circle. I'm going to continue until I have 8 O beads in the circle. That's how many you should end up with. So I go through the foundation roughly half a ring bead forward. I pick up a ring bead, a bugle, and an 11-0. And I go down the previous bugle and ring bead, trying to go through the foundation roughly on that line that we previously drew. Now here's my last sequence, and as you can see, it doesn't quite fit. I'm just going to fiddle with some of the next ones to make them a little bit farther apart. Like this next one that I'm going to have to go through. This is the first one that I added. So I go through this ring bead and I try to kind of make it, because their holes are kind of big, so I can push it a little bit further away from the center, making them kind of fit together. Don't worry, they'll all spread out nicely when we put in our crystal. My final 11-0, and I go down that last bugle and ring bead in the circle. But before I pull it tight, I'm going to put in my crystal, just like that, squeezing it in. And you can push it into that foundation a little bit so that you can feel the pointed back poking on your finger on the other side. I'm going to go up one of the next sequences. And don't worry about your chaton being a little bit insubordinate out there. We're gonna fix that in a moment. I'm gonna go through one of those 11-0s that I just added. I'll squeeze the entire thing as hard as I can. And I'm gonna add 15-0s in between the 11-0s here. So I'm just connecting the 11-0s with orange 15-0s from that lovely Miyuki mix. Now when you put all of them in, that's the time to squeeze tight, to pull tight, and go through all of those beads again just to reinforce the structure. Alright, and that's basically the entire bezel, so you can go back through the bugle, the ring bead, and the foundation. But you may notice that your chaton is still a little bit not exactly immobilized out there. So a little trick, what we're gonna do is we're going to put 15-0s to stabilize this chaton all around. So what I'll do is I'll find the spot between the ring beads right underneath that chaton in here. Can you see my needle coming out? Right here. And I'm going to put a single orange 15 right in there. You don't have to worry where you're putting your needle exactly, you just need it to be approximately here, so that when you pull it, a tiny little bead will kind of keep the chaton in its right position. So I'm going to continue adding 15s in those little nooks, little spots underneath the chaton to stabilize it. And you may ask, why not do it right away? Why do it right now when it's not the easiest to kind of get in there? That's because you can't exactly know where your chaton will fall when you're starting to add the beads. And I want this design to be as intuitive as possible without drawing anything, or drawing as little as possible. So right after this, the beads will kind of lead the way, and you just add beads where there's space. And right now we need to add beads in this space. Our chaton is now immobilized with its front facet facing perfectly upwards. And that's how you do the bezel. Now let's go on to adding the next layer, the next row of decoration around that. So I'm going to use the same thread, the same orange thread, and I'm going to come out in between the ring beads here. So that's where my thread is coming out of now. So that's where my thread is coming out of right now. And we're going to be picking up 7 15s. And I'm gonna go through the foundation in between the next ring beads. So I want the beads to kind of lay on the foundation around this ring bead. And I'm gonna secure them by finding the middle one and just tacking it down to the foundation. So here's the middle one. And I'm just tacking it down. You don't need to add each bead separately. This will absolutely suffice. And now I'm going to skip this ring bead and I'm going to go around the next one. So I'm going to add 15s on top of every second ring bead. 7 15s again, going in between the next ring beads. Just like this, I'm going to secure the middle bead. And 2 more left. Now once you've completed the 4 sections here, we can add the remaining 4, and we're going to be using 11s this time. So I'm putting my needle through the foundation kind of above that first 15 in here, so a little bit away from the ring bead. That's like a millimeter of space. And I pick up 3 11s, 3 orange 11s, and put them down on the other side like this, but we want them a little bit spiky. So I'm going to tack down this middle bead a little bit away from that ring bead again, so that it kind of pulls the entire 3 into a little bit of a triangle. I'm going to go to the next section. I'm going to do this 4 times. Now I've completed all 4 of my 11 sequences, and I'm ready to start the new row. It's going to be teal, so you can use a teal thread. I switched to the pink one. So we're going to be first adding beads on top of our 15s in here. So I'm going in between these 2 sections. right over there. And what I'll pick up is a 3mm Firepolish ring bead, Firepolish ring bead, Firepolish. And I go down on the other side of this little arch here. And you want the ring beads to kind of meet in here at an angle. And what I'll do is I'll tack down that middle Firepolish in here. So I just put it down on that foundation. I can go on to the next section in here. And again, I'll put 3 Firepolish beads and 2 ring beads on top of this row of 15-ohs. And I'll tack down that middle Firepolish. Right now that we have these 4 sections down, we can add the sections above the 11-ohs, and for this purpose, you guessed it, I go in between these 2 sections in here. And this time we're adding a bugle and matching teal 15-oh and another bugle. And you go to the other side in here, almost underneath that next Firepolish. And what you end up with, if you just help that 15-oh up a little bit and help these two meet, you get this kind of triangular section in here. And you tack down the 15-oh to keep it attached to the foundation. As I go around, I'm also going to tack down in between the first Firepolish and the ring bead, just because I don't like going too far with my thread on the back of the work without going through the foundation. So, I would have to go like from here to here, and that will be quite far away, and the beadwork could get a little bit loose with time. So I might as well improve on the appearance a little bit as I go. So I'm just going to go over the thread that connects these beads. Just about like that. You can see that it looks a little bit nicer than in here. Not much, but if you're a bit of a perfectionist like me, it will just give you some peace of mind to have everything perfect. But you don't have to do this. Again, bugle, 15-oh bugle. You go above the 11-ohs and stitch the 15-oh down. Now for this next row, we're going to be adding pink beads. And we'll start with these light pink 11-ohs that come from the lovely Miyuki mix. So for that purpose, I'm coming out of the foundation on one side of the section with the Firepolish. That's where we're going to be adding the 11-ohs. And for this one to come out even, we're gonna start with 3, and this time we're doing back stitch. So if you want this to be super even, you can draw a line and follow it. I'm just gonna eyeball it. So I put these 3 beads on the foundation. I go back through 3. Then I'm gonna add 2. Put them down on my foundation. And I'll go back through 3. So in between these 2 here. I'll pick up 2 more. Go back through 3. And if you have enough space, you add 2 more. but if not, you just add one more. Now you gotta come back through 2. So this should be 10 or 11 beads. And we can go on to the next arch. This is not that far, so I don't need to do any extra movement there. Starting with 3 and back through all 3 of them. Then adding 2 and going back again through 3. Now it's time to add the fire polish in here on top of our triangular sections. So I'm going to be coming out of right here next to where I want to add my beads above these bugles and the 15-0. And what I'll add is a metallic 11-0 from the mix, then a 2mm fire polish, another 11-0, another fire polish, and 11-0, so you have 3 11-0s and 2 fire polish beads. And I'm going to add them above this, so I go through the foundation next to this light pink arch. And you want to make these 2 fire polish beads meet just like this. And I'm gonna attach this 11-0 over here. Now I notice I don't have enough color around here, so I'm gonna color in a little bit of this here. Now for this next row, we'll be adding some bicones on top of these light pink rows of 11-0s. But what you start with first, after you go through the foundation in the position above the 11-0s, the first thing you add is an 11-0 and 2mm fire polish, then a ring bead, bicone, ring bead, bicone, ring bead, and finally fire polish and 11-0 again. And you just go to the other side and put that above this row here. I'm gonna go straight ahead to the next one and I'll tack it down as I go and make a second round around this row. So I'm up for the next section here. I pick up an 11-0 2mm fire polish, ring bead, bicone, ring bead, fire polish, and 11-0. And just add it on. Let me add the final 2. I'm going to come out right next to where I just added these beads, so right in here. And we're going to do them a little bit differently because we want to add another section with the bugles and we want to make it extra pointy. And the way to do it is you pick up a bugle, 2 15-0s, and a bugle. You go through on the other side. You go back to the very beginning, so to the other side, and go through the bugle and one of the 15-0s as well. And you add another middle 15-0 in between these 2. And it has to pop in between there like this. And only then do you tuck it down on top here. Now, as I mentioned, I want to tack down this row with bicones as I go on to add the next section with the bugles, but my thread is right now coming out around in here. So if I want to go over there, my thread will go through here in this part I want to cut out later on to have this nice shape in the end. So I don't want my thread to go on the back like from here to here, because I will be cutting that off and I don't want to cut my thread. So what I do is I come out before this bugle here and I just go through the bugle to be closer to that row with the bicones. This is additionally going to make this bugle section a little bit nicer and cleaner, just like that. And when I go to tack down this row in here, and this one I'm going to put down by going over the thread that's in between the beads. So like that. And as you can see now, there's a clear pattern like this and like this that will be easier to cut along as I cut off the excess foundation. Now I'm going to tack down this row on both sides of each bicone, nice and flat. And now I can add the next section with the bugles. Bugle, 2/15 bugle onto the other side, back through that first bugle and the first of the 2/15. I'll add the middle 15 here. I want to attach it to the foundation nicely in the middle there. And now I'll go through that second bugle to reach this spot that puts me in the position to put this row down on the foundation. And actually that's it for the beading. I can now finish my thread by tying a knot in the back. Now it's time to cut off the excess foundation, and we're going to be very careful about it. First, I'm going to cut near, but not too near my beads, because I don't want to cut any thread that's connecting the beads to the foundation. Right, so I cut this much. There's still some space. And now I will close on those beads, controlling how far away I am from the thread on the back. And I'm just cutting out small pieces. You can always cut more, so don't go very close in the beginning, and you can refine the shape later. Now I cut off the excess of my foundation. As you can see, in some places I was almost too close to the thread, so I do recommend that you go a little bit further away from the thread. Now this is when you want to add your pin or your brooch base if you're going to make this into a pin. You can also add some cardboard to make it a little bit more stiff, but this is relatively small, so you don't have to, which is why I'm going to put it on the backing now. By the way, the glue is going to make it a little bit more stiff as well. So what you do is you just put some glue on the back. You can spread it with the end of your glue, or you can use an orange stick to distribute a thin layer on the back of your work. Remember to use this glue in a well ventilated space because it's kind of smelly. Remember to leave a little bit of a margin on the sides because we don't want to make it harder for ourselves to go through all of the layers with the needle, and after the glue dries it's going to get a little bit harder to get through it. So I just leave a margin, then you squeeze for a little bit and you'll leave it to dry, after which you cut off the backing so that it is more or less on the same level as your foundation. And then we go on to finish the edge. Now I have this one. It has unfinished edge, so let's try. Now we're going to finish this piece with brick stitch. And to do this, you could basically use any beads that you like. We're gonna try with the bright orange 11Ls. This is why I'll be using the orange thread, and I got quite a lot of it on my needle because I like to finish my beadwork, my bead embroidered pieces with one piece wherever this is possible. And in here, I think we can do that. So I pick one side that will be my top. I think this will be here. Doesn't really matter all that much. And I start in between the layers towards the front and under the beads. I'll pick up 2 11Os and I go through the layers back to front, about 2 beads away if you look at the top of our edge here. And now I'm going to go up through the second bead here that is added. Now for a more detailed description on how to do brick stitch on the edge of a bead embroidered work, you can watch some of our other videos that will be linked down in the description, as well as they should pop somewhere here on the screen. Meanwhile, you add a single bead all the way forward from here. You go back up through it. And you do that all the way around your edge. Now why don't we make it a little bit more interesting by adding different beads on these little pointy elements. I'm going to go with 15Os, so I'm picking up a single 15O. And I'm going to go through the foundation on the side of this element already. Now if you're a beginner or you just don't want to risk cutting your thread and you cut the foundation a little bit more away from the beads, this is where some of the foundation may show. As you can see, mine is showing here a little bit. When I look from the front, it doesn't seem to be showing. When I look on the side, it is a little bit out there. But if you want to avoid that a little bit more, you can color it in the color of your edge. So you can color it orange on the sides right here. We're almost there. I finish by going through the first bead that I added as if this was a new bead that I'm just adding now from the front. So I'm passing through it downwards, and then I go through all the layers back to front, and I go through that first bead. And now I'll just pass through some more beads, like down and up, until I reach the middle. This can be one bead in the middle, like in my case. There's 4 beads on this side and 4 beads on this side. This is the middle bead, and this is where I'll make my bail. I'm quite lazy today, so I'm just going to pick up a ring bead, then as many 11Os as you want to make the bail in your desired size. In my case, it's 14. And I'm just gonna go back again through the ring bead and through that 11O, but I'm gonna go to the front and then direct my needle down through all the layers to the back so that it's easier to come right back up through that bead right here from the back. And you can just go through this loop again or can add some additional embellishments. I'm gonna add 2 more loops on the sides of this loop, and I'm gonna make them with 15 They're gonna be roughly the same size. What's important is you use the same number of beads on both sides. I'm gonna try 22. Now I'm gonna add one more on the other side with 15 Now just to secure it a little bit better, I'm going through all of the beads in the orange 11 loop again, just to make it a little bit more sturdy. So I went back up, and now I'm gonna go back down. And this time you can come out in the back. To finish, I'll go in between the beads in the last embroidered row. I'll go through some of them and tie a knot right there. And when you put this on a chain, this is what it's gonna look like. So quite pretty. And that's the pendant for this one. As you can see, I made a little beaded chain. I just put the beads on a wire, and if you want to learn how to finish a wire like that with crimp tubes, click on the video that should be showing somewhere on the screen right now, or find the link in the description. Meanwhile, all of the supplies can be found at eurekacrystalbeads.com. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and see you in the next one. Bye!